Alwyn Oh, welcome to Rising Giants. You are the founder and lead trainer at Brighton Academy Asia, also the missionary pastor at Brighton Community Church in Phnom Penh. It's great to have you join us on Rising Giants. I know it's been a long time coming, and it's great to be talking more about the work that you're doing, especially on the side of developing soft skills in Cambodia. So, to begin with, we'd just like to discuss a little bit about kind of how you ended up where you are today. So you're originally from Singapore. Um, can you talk to us a little bit about your early experience and kind of what led you into this field of of doing sort of training, coaching, as well as the your church side of things as well?
All right, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. So I came in 2019, and before that, I was a pastor in Singapore. So I was a youth pastor, and then I was a campus or university pastor where I lead university students and the army boys. So the guys who are in military service
Mm.
back in
Mm.
Singapore. So when the church was looking for someone to come over to take over the work because the previous missionary has returned to Singapore,
Mm.
we decided that we would come because we thought that hey, this is something that we felt called to do,
Mm.
and we have the necessary experience to come and carry on the work. So it was not an easy decision because we have family. We have a young child back then. He was 2.5 years old.
Mm.
Yeah, so of course the typical Singaporean worries and
Yeah.
concerns, to relocate. But eventually we decided that hey, this is something that the church wants to do, then we would obey, and it's something that we could contribute to, and that's why we came.
Mm.
So when we first came to Cambodia, we noticed that the church is largely made up of young people. Many of them were still in universities, graduating, and there were quite a few of them who are already working. And as we interacted with the young people, we realized that there's this gap in the area of soft skills or in the area of like being able to work in teams, communicate, carry themselves, and things like that, which we realize is something that as Singaporeans, we take for granted these things
Mm.
because our education system in Singapore actually trains us or equips us with these things as we grow up in primary schools, secondary schools, and then to our like colleges and stuff. So we realized that this is something that's very lacking in Cambodia, and this is a need that we could meet.
Mm.
So it's a gap that we could fill. So we were talking about this, myself and my wife. We felt that hey, if this is something that they need and it's something we could provide, then we should do something about it rather
Mm.
than just say, just lament. Yeah. So that's how the whole idea started to birth, and it was in COVID 2020 that we actually decided to say, hey, let's put some kind of like planning and preparation to the whole Brighton Academy,
Mm.
branding and marketing, yeah, to launch it.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's how it started.
Okay, and maybe just like rewinding a little bit,
Mm.
what was it like leaving Singapore? What are some of the things that you kind of immediately missed about leaving your home country? But what were also the kind of surprises and the enjoyments of moving to a different country?
Okay, I think I missed the food.
Yeah.
Yeah, I missed the food and the convenience of being able to just hit downstairs and you have your coffee shop where you get your food and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I would say these are like the casual comforts or the things that we just have taken for granted as so easy, and public transport.
Mm.
Yeah, so those are the things that I miss. And then later on, I realized that what I really missed was walkways. Like because
Mm.
in Singapore you walk everywhere and you have like these pedestrian walkways that you could just walk, but in Cambodia you can't walk,
Mm.
right?
You
By the
really
side
walk everywhere with even with the
with the public, yeah,
even
because
with
you
the
have to.
heat, or is it like
They Some of them have shelters,
yes, yeah,
but you walk from like the train station to the bus stop,
yeah,
and usually you walk quite a bit. And
yeah,
even in the train stations, the underground, you have to
okay,
walk quite a lot.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but that walking does. I think we miss that because right now you just take the tuk tuk and you go from point A to point B and you get
yeah,
down,
yeah,
which is also in a way the flip side of it. That's the positive thing. because now you don't have to wait for like the train to come. You don't have to
Right.
walk a long time just to get to the train. So yeah, it is like I would say it's like the pros and the cons at the same time. Yeah. So what I really enjoy here would be the convenience of getting from point A to point B rather quickly. Yeah. And comparatively, like ride-hailing services here are much cheaper
Yeah.
than Singapore. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a plus. Yeah.
What would you say like are the main? What would you say are some of the main cultural differences? What do you like? What do you not miss about Singaporean people?
People or
Yeah,
just
or like let's say what. So what do you miss about like the culture? How people operate versus here.
okay. Uh, I would say that Cambodians are much friendlier. Not to say that Singaporeans are not,
Mm,
but generally speaking,
mm,
Cambodians are more willing to help and more willing yeah, they are more willing to help if you
mm,
are in trouble.
mm,
Like when something happens on the street, for example, somebody there's somebody falls down, there's a crash, or you know usually what I notice is that Cambodian riders, they will stop, they would give way, they will slow down
mm,
just to let somebody do an illegal U-turn and stuff like that.
mm.
But in Singapore, you will get honked at like crazy and shouted at and given death stares. So in a sense, that's a bit. I would say that in Singapore, it's a bit more hectic and rushed. Like
Mm.
everybody's just rushing to get somewhere.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the reason why people are behaving like that. There's no what we call margin for that space to be
Mm.
gracious.
Right.
Whereas in Cambodia, everything's in a slightly slower pace, and so there's a little bit more margin for like
Mm.
giving way and helping, lending a helping hand.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think probably the other thing. I mean, I don't exactly have the data on this, but I would presume like Singapore is a much more like secular society.
Mm-hmm.
In that, but I'm sure you have a lot more perspective on that. Like, what role does religion play in
Mm-hmm.
in Singapore? Would you
I think
say?
Singapore is positioned as secular
Mm.
because we are multi-religious and
Right.
multicultural, multiracial. So, in a sense, we don't allow or we do not want religion to come
Mm.
into like the society.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that sense of like influencing societal behavior or
Mm.
civic cultures and behaviors.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, it's secular. But I would say that the people who are religious or
Mm.
who have a religion, they are probably devout in their practice or their lifestyles of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but there is that great understanding of being respectful
Mm.
to each other's religions,
Yeah.
cultures, and stuff like that. So you would see Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, they can live well together.
Mm.
They can be harmonious. They could live together, work together, eat together, and things like that without offending each other. And because we are just so mindful to be respectful, and that's something that has been taught to us, inculcated in us since we were young.
Mm.
Like since you are a kid and you start going to school, we start to teach about like religious respect and all these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting that we don't have that kind of clashes.
Right.
Yeah.
And how does that? How would you say that then compares to Cambodia and coming in here and being part of the
Mm.
Christian community here?
Mm. I would say Cambodia is largely Buddhist,
Right.
right? Like we only have about statistically 2 to 3% Christians, and
Mm.
then you have your like I think there's a big Muslim community and things like that. But in general, because it's so largely Buddhist,
Mm.
we just take it for granted that this is a Buddhist society, and so whatever values are is taken from the Buddhist teachings, and so I would say that we don't. But the thing is that the government is very open to the freedom to practice, to preach, to speak, to
Mm.
do in a sense to do what you want to do, as long as it does not infringe on political things.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that would be the OB marker. Like,
Mm.
do not cross that OB marker of
Mm.
being political. If it's your religion, if it's your faith, kind of like convictions, then go ahead. As long as whatever you do does not, cause that kind of like conflict or tension, and it's fine. So I think that's something that we are also thankful for. I mean, coming from a Christian perspective, that we are then able to have the freedom to practice, to share, to teach. Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, you mentioned about your coming to Cambodia as part of Brighton. Can you just tell the audience a little bit more about the how Brighton got going, and then like how as time's gone on, you've kind of branched out into two areas whereby you have the church and then you have the academy.
Okay. So we came in 2010
Mm.
to kind of explore if Cambodia was even a viable kind of a land to plant a church. So
Mm.
that was the whole genesis of Brighton coming to Cambodia. So somebody invited us. We
Mm.
came, we met a group of young people, and we just sensed that even back then, 2010, that was like what, 14 years ago,
Yeah.
the young people were really hungry for growth, for learning, for development.
Mm.
And so we came in and we started with like soft skills training. And most of our trainers are certified MBTI trainers. So the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which is like the personality profiling tool. So we came in doing most of it MBTI related
Mm.
trainings. And we realized that the young people really like that whole personal development part of things. So that's how we kind of gathered a community of young people. And then in 2015, we sent our first missionary family to come and start the church, because we then have like a group of people, like 20
Mm.
to 30 of them.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's how it got started. And once the church got started, I guess the focus was then to conduct the church services and activities. So then that's where all the training started to dwindle. And when I came in 2019, we basically had zero trainings with the schools or the universities anymore. So when I took over, it was just church.
Mm.
But that's where I said that we saw this gap and we realized that, hey, there's still so many opportunities to do good work in the land, in the country. And we felt that we can't just only do church work without meeting the need of the people
Mm.
in that way. So that's how the whole genesis of like Brighton Academy started to take place.
Mm.
Yeah. So in 2020, there was COVID. We were shut in, and that's where I did a lot of like prayer, time of praying, thinking, and we just sensed that this is the right direction, the thing to do, to kickstart Brighton Academy as a non-profit training academy,
Mm.
that we could then offer free of charge trainings to students in universities and high schools. Yeah. And so we put in a bit of effort to kind of think about how do we brand ourselves, how do we position ourselves, how do we engage with partners, yeah,
Mm.
subsequently. Yeah, so that's how Brighton Academy started around 2020, 2021, where we officially had like a first kind of contact with someone who wanted us to conduct trainings with them.
Mm.
Yeah, so then in a way, post COVID, where the Prime Minister, the ex-Prime Minister, announced that, okay, you can have your trainings. That was like 2022. That's when we conducted our first physical training with the Cambodian Scouts.
Mm.
And that was with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports.
Mm.
So that was our first ever like in-person training here as Brighton Academy under that name.
Mm.
So since then, it has grown. We have partners, schools, mostly schools, universities reaching out to us and say that, could you come and do trainings for students and things like that?
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and just touching a bit also before we kind of move on more to dive into the work you're doing on the academy. I'm just curious because this is, I think when most people think of like church organizations, they wouldn't necessarily think, oh, you would have an academy as well. So it seems relatively like innovative what you're doing, like to have both areas and it not just be focused entirely on church, on going to church.
Yeah.
What would you say are like some of the things that have, let's say the history of being a missionary
Mhm.
in somewhere like Cambodia? What have been some of the things that some of the ways that it's kind of evolved and tried to like adapt to a more like a new paradigm of how that work should be done?
Okay, I think just comment on like missionary work.
Yeah.
I think usually churches think of doing missionary work where they target the children or the elderly, and their focus is on what we call mercy ministries, meaning doing good works like giving handouts, helping people who are living under the poverty line and things like that. So very humanitarian aid related kind of work, and that through those work they try to then share the gospel, tell people about Jesus and things like that. So our take is a little bit different because and it's also from like our church in Singapore.
Right.
Our strategy for church planting has always been to go to the city, like the capital city of a country, to then plant churches that will then reach out to the people who can become the leaders of the church, and they themselves would then be more effective in reaching their own people. So our focus is therefore to find people we can raise to be leaders of their own country, and which means that you kind of need to find people who are, in a sense, more who are capable to provide leadership, people who have education, people who are able to work in teams, people who could think strategically, and you could train them up, to do that, and then they could go on to reach their own people across the whole strata of society. Because we don't believe that, or we don't think that we as foreigners would be the best spokesperson or to relate to the locals. Especially Cambodia is such a big country. You have the city folk, and then you have the provincial, like the village folk. So we would not be the best people to go and reach them. We could try, but as with languages and culture, there's always that gap, and we want to be more. I guess this is a Singaporean mindset. We want to be efficient and effective in what we do. So we rather look for the people who could get us, understand what we're trying to say, understand how we work and how to be trained up professionally and to develop. Then they can be the leaders who think, okay, what is the need of the country that they themselves could go and meet that need.
Right.
So that's the approach.
Less of this kind of this the way in which is kind of blended with philanthropy and the aid kind of.
So for us, we think that if the leaders of the local leaders want to do things that's related to children ministry, elderly, or to reach the poor, and all these things, then they would be the ones to kickstart projects and things like that, and they will provide the leadership for it, rather than it's being imposed by us, or that we say you should do it, and then they force themselves to go and do it. But if they catch that heart for that, then they would do it with greater passion and motivation. And then it will be a sustainable kind of form of work. So the important thing is to keep it sustainable, and the locals, the leaders of should be the ones that sustain it.
Right. Okay. It does seem like it's a very, you have a very interesting model on how you approach kind of raising or like being part of this next generation of leaders in the country. So maybe let's dive more into Brighton Academy. How has the kind of, when you conceived of this idea, how has it evolved from of course, as you were saying, it was all online, and then now it's become, now you're able to do it in person, and you've also expanded beyond Cambodia. So maybe just talk us through the kind of journey of that.
Okay, so when we started, I made a deal with God, like, if you can say that. I said that I'm not going to go and do cold calls and drop emails, because I think I've already have my hands full with like the church work, and if this was something that we're going to really do, I don't want to be going around like a salesman. So I said, you have to send me people to come knocking on our doors. And that was how it started. Like, it was really, I would call it divine appointments, where people just say, hey, I heard of you, that you are doing training in Cambodia. Would you like to meet and talk? And after talking, they say, oh, we'd like you to come and run a workshop and a training. And that's how it's
it's all word of mouth. And
it was all word
manifestation.
I mean, you put it in the terms of the world, you say it's manifestation, right? And you think it happens. But I believe that we prayed and God sent the right contacts to work with us,
right?
And that's how it started to grow and started to build up.
Did you ever have a moment where you were like, where it was taking too long, or you were like getting close to saying, I'm going to
Uh,
try and reach out, or you kind of kept that conviction that people were going to come?
I think that I was never afraid because anyway, it's not a business,
Right.
right? I'm not depending on it for profit or for income. So to me, there
Mm.
was never that kind of like struggle. There were times where I thought I need to do more, so I thought I need to go and reach out. But when I did that, usually the doors just closed shut in my face.
Mm.
So that was interesting. Like if I didn't do anything, people started calling. If I do something, people close the doors. So
Mm.
then that's where I learned right from the early stage to just not do too much and just wait on people to come calling or knocking.
Right, and I mean, one thing at least Dom and I have learned with the podcast is like it's not really about, it's not necessarily even about who you are or like what position you're in, or like, it's really just also about the time that you've been here.
Mm.
I think, well, especially as like foreigners, it's like, um just people like, because I think there's this classic thing of people seeing a lot of people come and go, and so
Yeah.
they kind of wait
Yeah.
to and keep an eye, and then they go, okay, I consistently see that this person is kind of keeping to their word,
Yeah.
and so then I want to go and I respect what they're doing and the commitment that they have, and
Yeah.
that's what we found, at least. Like, you can't be impatient.
Yeah.
The timelines of working relationships are much more
Yeah.
spread out, whereas like some people just arrive in and they think they can just like,
I mean, if you have money,
yeah,
then you could like inject it into a lot of like your publicity and
yeah, yeah,
all that. But for us, because we are here for the long haul,
right,
so it's more of like being consistent in doing good work and really adding value to the people that you are providing training or services to.
mm,
And then by the word of mouth, they would recommend you to other people as well and say, hey, you could reach out to them and see if they could meet your needs
mm,
in terms of the training. Yeah. So for us, that's how it worked. So we have that going on, and then we said, hey, this is something that works for us in Cambodia,
mm,
in Phnom Penh, and our church in Singapore wants to also go into Philippines and go into Thailand. So we felt that, hey, Brighton Academy is something that by itself really does add a lot of value
mm,
to the development of human capital in 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 these countries. And that's something that we as Singaporeans, with our, I would say our privileged background, thanks to the good work of the government, we could do so much more to help the nations around in this region.
mm,
And to us, that's what spurs us to do the work that we do. Like we just want to be able to share our blessings to the surrounding countries. So that's why we went to Philippines to look for like people who are willing to work with us, and we go there to do the same thing, like conduct trainings, provide this kind of extracurricular, enrichment
mm,
that they would otherwise not have
mm,
because they either don't have the resources or the manpower to do these trainings, both in Philippines and in Thailand as well.
mm,
Yeah, so that's something that we have expanded into end of last year.
okay,
So this year we are ramping up the activities in Bangkok.
okay,
We already have something going on in Chiang Mai. Yeah, so Bangkok is the area that we are ramping up activities in.
mm,
Philippines, we're exploring.
yeah,
Yeah, because we also have limited like manpower and resource, so we
right,
can't expand too fast. But there's a lot of interest coming out from Philippines for us
mm,
to move faster or do more. So that's pretty exciting
mm,
to see. Yeah.
okay. But sorry, but with Brighton Academy, the first country was Cambodia.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
it's
that's,
birthed in
yeah,
Phnom Penh.
okay. And so, um, on the types of companies and people that you work with, can maybe just dive in there a little bit more, like who have been who have been the kind of people that you're working with?
Okay, we work mostly with universities.
Yeah.
So currently, or for the past 2 years, that's the groups of people that we're working with, like the National University of Management, Royal University of Phnom Penh.
Mm,
We've worked with Paragon. Some of these universities, like the bigger national universities, some private universities as well,
mm,
some high schools, like
mm.
private high schools. We have worked with them as well. We've worked with development agencies like the Digital Workforce Development Team. I can't
Yeah,
remember the
yeah, I think I've
exact
heard of that
name.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, so they have this whole program going on, which is related to the digitalization of the workforce and all that. So we partnered with them to conduct like trainings and programs before.
Mm.
Yeah, so these are usually more on the education sector, yeah, in the education industry. Yeah, so these are the companies with or the groups of people we work with. We because of these programs, sometimes we work with private companies like banks or other companies that are involved in these programs that have been roped in. So we get to know them, we get to hear about the work that they do, the culture that that their companies have, and things like that. So we do try to reach out to private sector
Yeah.
because part of the program or the idea is to, besides training the students, we hope to bring the students to do like visits and to link up with private sector to learn more. And if we can, we will refer them for internships and part-time work. And so that's the other thing that we want to do for the students, is to then bring in opportunities for them to get work. So besides doing the trainings, we also want to link them up. And if we do know of companies who are looking for candidates, and through the trainings, we might have come across a few students that really fit the portfolio that or the people that they're looking for, then we would actually directly refer them to the companies and say, hey, would you like to check out this person's
Right.
resume? And then we just be the bridge. Yeah. So for us, because we are not, like I said, we're not non-profit, so we are not like a company that does headhunting. Like we introduce you and get a commission out of it. So for us, we just say, okay, these are some brilliant students that could meet your criteria. Would you like to interview them? Would you like to take a look at their resumes? So that's what we try to do.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the student wins, the companies win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What do the actual trainings look like? Can you talk a bit about like, you know, what are the main topics and points that students or people in the private sector really want to focus on with these trainings, or how has it changed over time?
Okay, so initially we offered only MBTI related trainings because I'm a certified MBTI practitioner. So of course that's like your go-to toolkit. So we just do MBTI, helping people discover their personalities and the strengths related to their personality types. And then from there, we branch out to specific contexts where you apply your knowledge of MBTI. So things like team dynamics, how do you work as a team, your leadership, your communication, stress management. That was really popular during COVID. How do you manage stress? Because each of us, we experience stress differently.
Right.
So we need to de-stress differently. So yeah, so MBTI related topics became the mainstay initially, but right now we have branched into MBTI related curriculum and non-MBTI related curriculum. So things related to how do you brand yourself professionally, like on LinkedIn? How do you pitch yourself? How do you manage your time? How do you manage your habits? How do you form habits and all these things? We have a new kind of module called finance management. Yeah, something like it's like a game where you have it's a card game. So as you play the game, you learn some like finance management principles, and then we do like a debrief and a learning and that kind of thing. So yeah, so we have that different tracks in that sense. So usually when we share it with the school, or right now we are trying to expand into offering our trainings to companies. So we will share with them our pitch deck, and basically it's like a buffet of modules that you can pick and choose. So it depends on, and usually I will tell them it depends on your needs rather than what we can offer, because we rather meet your training objectives than to say that just take my whole suite of programs. Yeah, because we're not here to sell a program. We're here to try and help you achieve what you think is necessary for your students or for your employees. Yeah, so that's how we approach it. So we have worked with some SMEs or startups. Yeah, like Much Mobile. Yeah, so Much Mobile, she's a wonderful lady, founder. And yeah, she shared with us her concerns about her team, her management team. And we say, okay, so we could recommend these certain topics that you would be helpful to bring the team together, to related to communications, conflict resolution. Yeah, and so we recommend depending on what they need, rather than we just say take the whole suite. Yeah, so but we previously were very selective about companies that we work with, because most of the time is dedicated to the students, like the universities, and I'm the only trainer in Cambodia, so I have limited time. So we usually look for companies that we share the same value or have like aligned values. Like we really want to focus on people development. So they must have that concern for their staff development for us to say, okay, we could work together. Yeah, if it's just purely business, uh, like for money, then we would think again. Yeah. So we usually don't uh, pursue companies. Yeah, and usually when companies approach us, they will say, "Oh, give me a quote," and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, I can recommend you a friend who would who would love to work with you
Yeah.
and do your business because we're not here to do business.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's our approach so far.
But you will, I mean, when you're working with the private sector, I presume you they will still have to they will still pay, right?
No.
Oh, you won't charge
Okay,
anything.
so like I said, we work with the smaller like SMEs and startups and all that.
Mm.
Usually they are pretty tight on budget as well,
Yeah.
but they still want and they still need to build a team,
Right.
right? And for me personally, that's my passion, and I would say that's something that I will say over the years have done quite well in terms of like that's my strength,
Yeah.
like leadership and team building. So I would work with them because I see their need and their concern, and then we will not charge them. We will not say like this is the contract and this is the the bill.
Right.
Yeah, for these companies. To me, it is more of like offering my time, my experience to work with them, just as a form of just wanting to help you be better. Yeah.
Okay.
So but some companies would then give like a donation to the work that we do.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
So we don't ask explicitly. Some of them would just say, "Hey, we would just love to donate something for the work that you do with the students." Yeah. So they do that. I mean, it's not like big amounts, but I think the gesture does. We appreciate the gesture.
Right.
Yeah, because we get to then do more with the students. Yeah, like for the students, high school students, what we do every year so far for the past 2 years is that for all the grade 12 students who finish their national exams, we will throw a big party to celebrate that finishing of that phase of their school life, their student life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So initially that budget comes from our own pocket. Like we have to kind of like pay for it ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now with like some of these donations, it's not a lot, just to
Yeah.
clear. Yeah. So with this, at least we have something more to then buy better refreshments and snacks and gift packs and all these things
Yes.
for the students. So that's basically where the money goes to. If not, it would just come out from our own pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And what's it like? You said you started this in Cambodia and you're doing it in Thailand and looking at the Philippines. How do the three countries compare in terms of this, I guess, soft skills area?
okay, so for me personally, I have not gone down to the two other countries, because we have a team and a network of trainers and mentors from Singapore who goes up,
Yeah.
and they kind of have like a specialization in a sense. Like there's a group of people who are really passionate about Philippines, and then
Yeah.
a group of people who are very passionate about Thailand.
Yeah.
So they would go to the two different countries.
Yeah.
I think the language is the main challenge. Like Philippines, they speak English,
Right.
so you have no problem with that. In Thailand, they don't speak English, so
Right.
you will need a translator,
Right.
and it's quite difficult to find like English speaking students or participants. Whereas in Phnom Penh, it's quite easy to find people who are able to converse and understand English. So I would say that is the in terms of the difficulty, yeah, for the different countries. But in terms of openness and that hunger for learning something to be trained, I think it's the same for these three countries. Yeah, similar.
Okay. And when you're doing the trainings in Cambodia, you also
Yeah.
having to make use of translators as well.
It depends.
Yeah.
So it depends on the students,
Mm.
the schools, and the students. So usually, best is not to have a translator because then it goes faster.
Right.
But inevitably, we still have to do that because there are students who are not as proficient, or if we work with groups that are working with students that are really not good in English, then we would have to bring someone to come and translate the material.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe could you share a few like maybe like memorable moments or success stories that you've had, like with these trainings that have kind of like maybe stuck out over time?
Mm, I would say the memorable ones would be the students who come up after the trainings
Mm,
to share that after today's session, they really learn something about themselves
mm,
that they otherwise never knew. Yeah. So like that self-awareness that they are able to then go and reflect more about what they want to do with their life or what they want to do with themselves. Yeah. One of the things that we do, we have a template, we call it a personal development plan.
mm,
So we walk the students through that. They fill it in, and then they either meet us up in small groups to do like a personal clinic or consultation, or they could do it in a group setting. So we have that kind of mentoring sessions.
mm,
So when we see the students benefit from it, meaning they actually make progress in, especially in their career goals, like
mm,
they land a job or they are able to advance in certain things, and they thank us for it.
mm,
Yeah, so I think those are the to me the most rewarding and memorable kind of
mm,
experiences.
mm.
Yeah.
Okay. And what would you say your like your goals are for the next few years, or your kind of vision for how it all unfolds?
I think the bigger dream for Brighton Academy is for it to connect the young people in the region.
Mm,
Um, yeah, so we really hope to see those who have been with us in the past few years, because then they will have graduated, they will started work, and they will come back to give their time as alumni to help the next generation of
mm,
young people. So they would then serve as the mentors. So we no longer would depend on mentors from Singapore, but mentors from their own country, like Cambodians mentoring Cambodians, which is something that is not common here,
mm,
right? That we don't have a mentoring culture in Cambodia.
right.
Yeah, so there's something that we kind of want to inculcate and kind of start here in Cambodia, where
Mm,
the older generation would then mentor somebody who's younger, and the goal is to connect the region, meaning then these young people could work with young people from other countries to see that we want the entire region to develop
mm,
and to prosper, and we could help each other. We could recommend jobs across to different countries. Thailand can recommend jobs to Cambodians, and Cambodians can recommend jobs to Thais to come to work in Cambodia, and things like that, to then help each other and lift each other up.
mm,
So that would be like the bigger dream. Yeah, where people help each other.
mm,
Yeah, and I see that young people, the younger generation, have a different aspiration for their future, for their country, and for the region.
right.
So yeah, being older, we don't want to like just impose our direction for their life, but we're just here to guide them and mentor them towards discovering what they think would really help. Yeah, would be best for their country.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's a it's a good segue into our the last part of our podcast. So you talked there about mentors and the importance of that.
Mm.
Um, who have been, or have there been any significant mentors in your life? Yeah.
Yeah. I think I can think back to about 4 or 5 of them.
Mm,
Yeah, the first one would be my big boss.
mm,
So he mentored me since I would say 18.
mm,
Yeah, so he guided me in life, in love, in faith, in
mm,
wisdom for living and things like that. So yeah, he's my senior pastor in church, and so he has been that mentor and that father figure to me. Yeah, so I think he would be like one of the most pivotal mentors in my life to guide me in the values that I have, how I think about people, how I think about my faith,
mm,
how I want to live my life in response to the call that God has given me.
mm.
Yeah. So the second one would be my current uh in corporate terms, it's like your reporting officer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but basically I report to her. She's our missions pastor, so she oversees all the missions work.
Mm,
Yeah, in overall. Yeah, so she as well has a lot of wisdom to share based on her experience and all that. Yeah, so she's also another one who teaches me a lot of things
mm,
about how to plan and think of new ideas and execute on them. Yeah, and the other one is another lady who used to be the chief of HR of a big insurance company in Singapore. So she really taught me a lot about L&D, learning and
Mm,
development, team building, people development, and professional development. So I think that is where I got my main kind of like interest and my knowledge and experience in people development.
mm,
Yeah, because of her.
mm,
So she was my mentor and advisor back in Singapore when I was in as a youth pastor and all that. So she really taught me a lot of the corporate level L&D stuff that I implement in the church with the people that I work with.
mm,
And I see that these practices and these kind of like theories and applications are very suitable for what we do in the church as well. Right.
mm,
So I think that's where I like gel the two together or try
mm,
to think of how do we bridge them together
mm,
to make the work that we do more effective. Yeah. So these are, I would say, the three. The other ones would be people who have come in and out, like mentors who come in for a season and all that to teach me about how to relate to people.
mm.
Yeah. And things like that.
And what would you say are some of the your most important habits that you have on a on like a weekly, monthly basis that keep you grounded in this mission?
Habits. Faith-based habits would be that daily time
Yeah,
spending with God,
yeah,
like prayer, meditation, reading the Bible, like very basic stuff for a Christian
right,
to do, right?
right, right.
Yeah, but I think it's not just about like checking the box of doing all this Christiany churchy stuff.
Yeah,
I think that that daily time of just being alone.
mm,
I mean, the world practices meditation and things like that, right? But for us, like for me, it is grounded in in the Bible and
mm,
in talking to God, communion with God. Like this morning, before
mm,
I came, every morning I wake up about 6, and I spend an hour just praying and meditating and listening to like worship songs and just
mm,
connecting with God, reading the Bible.
mm,
So I think that helps me keep me grounded in my life mission, so that whatever I do, even if it goes big, it does not get to my head and think like, oh, this is all about me, but there is a bigger kind of picture that I fit into.
mm,
Yeah. So that's I would say my daily habit for my like spiritual life. Physically, I try to go to the gym every week, once a week. I mean, I would love to do more, but I think that's the discipline that I try to have as a habit for myself,
mm.
which is to hit the gym once a week, at least like minimum.
Minimum.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
be mindful of what I eat and
Mm,
drink, like just to for the sake of like physical health, longevity, energy, so that you can get to do the work that you do longer
mm,
and with more focus and energy. Yeah,
mm.
so those are the two.
Okay, that's yeah, that's really yeah. Able to do an hour in the morning. That's yeah, that's really great to have that time set aside. I do try, but to like set aside some time just to be like alone and still in the morning before like the madness begins.
Yeah.
But it's not never normally an hour. Can't seem to get that long. But if someone was going to play you in a movie, who would it be?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I think of myself
Mm.
as like trying to be like Donnie Yen.
Okay.
So I don't think of someone playing me. I
Mm-hmm.
think of myself as like wanting to be like Donnie Yen. I mean,
Mm.
I'm not sure if you've read about him or
I've heard,
heard
but
his interviews.
maybe explain further. Yeah.
Like he is 60 years old
Mm.
and he's super disciplined in his life,
Mm.
in the way he conducts his life, his business, his
Mm.
fitness, and all that. So that's that focus, that drive, and the whole point is to continue to be able to have that energy, that motivation
Mm.
to do the work that you do,
Mm.
and not be in that like lamenting, wait till life hits you kind of state. Yeah. So when I look at his life and the work that he has done in his movies and things like that, and the way he conducts his family, like he's a family man,
Mm.
it inspires me to say like, hey, I want to be like that kind of figure, like
Mm.
somebody who is intentional in his living, very focused, and takes care of his family well, and things like that, like
Yeah.
building that habit into that. So I can't think of anyone playing me, but I would love to play Donnie Yen.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
in
cool.
future.
Okay, and yeah, our traditional closing question for everyone is:
Hmm.
what is the most important piece of advice you've ever been given?
I would say that okay, it's like a sub there's like a sub point to it. So if you know the popular saying, "Do for others what you wish would be done for yourself." Yeah, so I kind of expanded that into two things.
Mm,
Firstly, it is to do for others what others have done for me, right? That has helped me. So
mm,
that really drives me to do what I do, to do for others what I think I have been blessed with by my mentors, by people who have helped me in my life.
mm,
And second thing is to do for others what I wish someone has done for me.
mm,
So that is the other thing that drives me, which is to do for the people, the younger people or people around me that I wish somebody had told me before, like
mm,
somebody had guided me in this area before. Then I wouldn't have made the mistakes that I made. I would have seized the opportunities that I would have seized.
mm.
So in a way, that's that split point. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you
I
kind of
got
expanded out a bit more. Yeah,
yeah, and
that's
that
cool.
advice was not somebody given it to me directly. I
Mm,
actually heard it from this person called Andy Stanley, who is
okay.
a pastor in the US, and
Mm,
one of his messages that he preached that really stuck with me since
mm,
then till now. That drives me in almost everything that I do.
mm.
Yeah,
Well, great. Well, on that note, Alwyn, thank you very much for taking the time. It's a great conversation, learning more about all the work you're doing here, and wish you the best for the future.
thank you.